Subject. The legislature is back in session. Speaker Pangelinan, you recognize.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to move that, notwithstanding the objections of the governor, that vetoed Bill S-145-31 be placed in the voting file for the purpose of an override.
On that motion, to place vetoed Bill 145.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we all know that this entity is facing with regards to where we find ourselves with the Annual Appropriations Act of the Government of Guam. Most recently, and I think it was just not too long ago, the Attorney General officially issued an opinion that with the passage of the budget bill and any failure of an override, that this government will face a shutdown come October 1st of the incoming fiscal year. Madam Speaker, we all have discussed the issues with regards to what is contained in the budget bill, and we would just like at this time to be able to provide an opportunity for members of this body to consider overriding the governor's veto to prevent a government shutdown and to provide the annual appropriations of the operations for the government of Guam. In addition, of course, the bill provides a borrowing being offered and passed by this body that would allow payment of a large and significant portions of the past due refunds. I don't think anybody's going to argue that it pays all of it. It does not. But it does provide within the budget bill an opportunity to provide over $120 million in past due refunds, which will pay all of 2009 refunds. According to the Department of Revenue and Taxation's latest report on August 23rd, interest and principal of refunds from 2009 and back that are in A status, meaning all ready to be paid, total $105 million. That means of the 120 provided for in the borrowing that is embedded in this bill, that we would pay off all of 2009 going back, and we would have $15 million left to pay for 2010 refunds, which are current. They're not past due at this time. In addition, of course, we have in the budget, fiscal year budget, a set-aside of over $100 million to pay for the 2010 refunds. And so you take the 15 plus the 110, and we will have an opportunity to, going forward, pay the remaining balance of refunds owed the people of Guam. In addition, the FY 2012 budget has a set-aside of $105 million, over and above the $110 million set aside in this fiscal year. So that also gives us another $100 million over the next 12 months, beginning October 1, that will be available to pay any refunds, 2010 and 2011 refunds. It's very clear in the bill that this 105 set aside in the FY 2012 budget will be available to pay the remaining 2010 and 2011 refunds. In addition, Madam Speaker, one of the most important features of the bill is that we now set aside 50% of the GRT as a funding source in addition to the general collections of the government of Guam to make sure that that $105 million that is set aside is in fact going to be available when it's time to pay the refunds. Now the arguments have been made that if you make that available for refunds, then there's no money for operations. Well, it doesn't matter then where the money comes from, whether it comes from GRT or general tax collections. If you're telling me right now that we cannot afford to pay $105 million in refunds because it's going to affect government operations, then it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter whether we lock it away or not lock it away. I say that this forces the financial discipline that has been missing over all these years that have brought us to the point where we have to once again borrow money from the bond market to pay past due refunds. If we go and implement this program as the way it's designed, I am positive that going forward, every single year, every single taxpayer will get a tax refund and won't have to wait 2 or 3 years for 1 or 2 refunds. That's the way this program is designed, Madam Speaker. And it is very important that we put it in place because it will allow us to move forward and not fall behind. And that really is the crucial element of the program that's designed in the budget bill. Now, we just finished special session and we did not approve the governor's plan of the budget. There's 2 elements of the of the budget bill, Madam Speaker, both what the governor presented in the special session and both what was passed and is the subject of an override. The operation side of the House plus the borrowing and financing component side of the House. The bill that the governor sent down for the operation side of the House basically reaffirms all of the actions that the body took in passing this bill that is the subject of this override. The governor did not change the budget allocation. As a matter of fact, we saw that the governor said that one of the problems with the budget bill that he vetoed was it didn't provide the additional person for the Guam Veterans Office. But when the governor sent down the bill that we just turned down, he didn't add that other person that was missing. He just said, it's okay. I affirm that we will have 1 additional person at Office of Veterans Affairs and not 2. So it just kind of goes to show that there is an opportunity here, I think, and the governor recognizes that the budget and the operational side of this budget is a workable budget, and that the major difference between the governor's desire in finding a financing structure for the operations of the government next year is the borrowing. And the debate is whether or not we can afford to obligate ourselves for a borrowing of $343 million when we are today struggling to just pay our debt service. And we have structured a way in the budget, that in the bill that is the subject of this override, the opportunity to incrementally work through the operation side of setting the right structure and then putting in a significant and large portion of the solution needed for the past due refunds. We will pay all past due refunds 2009 and back. And those are the past due refunds. And these are all the information that has been presented to this body by the governor's staff. We're not taking any new information from any new source. So when we say it's 105, we just took the report and we added it up, and that's how many. 57,000 taxpayers will get a check if the governor decides to implement the borrowing that's been authorized on him. In addition, another 48,000 people will be able to be paid for 2010 with the set-aside provisions. So, Madam Speaker, I'm asking my colleagues to think about the possibility that if we don't override this bill, that we are faced with a government shutdown. When we're talking about a layoff, there's no greater layoff than the entire government of Guam shutting down. We are concerned about the structural deficit of this government and the need to bring that into balance, but we need to ensure that we protect the financial integrity of this government at this time by not overexposing ourselves and risking ourselves to something that we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And until those uncertainties are clearer to us, then it is, I believe, prudent and compassionate to be able to ensure that we put a huge dent by paying all past due refunds 2009 and back, and working very diligently and putting in a system and a program that will allow us to pay then the 2010 and 2011, 12, and 13 and other years' refunds going forward. So I ask my colleagues for their kind consideration, for their compassionate consideration, to think about the people that we will be able to help. 57,000 of them for the 2009 and back, another 30 to 44,000 for the 2010. And we can do the 57,000 by Christmas, as the governor promised, and we can help then the other 44,000 by next Christmas, by January, by July, because we have a mechanism that will make available every single month the cash needed to support the payment of income tax refunds to our community. And we will avoid a government shutdown with the passage of an override. Thank you very much, and Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome, Speaker Pangelinan. On the motion.